The giant of the air show was a 69-meter-long Soviet transport making its first appearance in the West. Bearing a resemblance to the Lockheed C-5, the Antonov raised eyebrows at Paris and introduced the question of technology borrowing. Bill Gregory, editor of Aviation Week, posed questions to Sergei Sikorsky, who acted as interpreter for a rare interview.
If I may, I would like to introduce this gentleman here, Pyotr Vasilyevich Balabayev, who is the chief engineer of the Antonov design office.
Balabuyev.
Balabuyev is the exact. Balabuyev is the pronunciation. Thank you. Spasiba. This is a gentleman who designed this huge aircraft, the Ruslan, or the Antonov An-124, currently regarded as being the largest heavy cargo transport aircraft built in the world.
Sergei's father, the famous Russian designer Igor Sikorsky, was a pioneer in aviation. The Sikorsky name is revered by those on the inner circle of Soviet design.
This is not the prototype. There's already a number of these aircraft that are flying. This is a production version of the machine. The cruising speed of this aircraft reaches up to 865 kilometers an hour, and its takeoff gross weight is 405 metric tons. Rather very interesting characteristic of the aircraft also is the ability to kneel, to drop the nose down, and to be able to load and unload vehicles from the nose as well as from the rear.
As with the C-5, the upward-lifting nose cone has been designed to swing clear of the pilot's cabin to avoid breaking electronic or hydraulic lines.
Another one of the problems, of course, was the aerodynamics, to get an aircraft as aerodynamically efficient as possible. And the third one, obviously, was the question of the power plants. We had to wait for the proper engines to be developed and to be available.
The Antonov is powered by 4 Lotarev engines, designated D-18T. Each has a thrust of 51,400 pounds, a bypass ratio of about 6:1, and a cruise-specific fuel consumption of 0.057.
It's pretty black.
The Antonov cabin is 4 meters in width, 4.4 meters in height, and 36 meters long. The front and back ramps are set at 14 degrees in the loading position.
The traveling overhead cranes have a total capacity of 5 tons per winch, or a total of 20 tons overhead.
Можно загрузку техники делать и в 2 ряда, и в 1 ряд, в зависимости от ее габарита.
And the aircraft is capable of being loaded. Either smaller vehicles can be loaded in 2 tracks simultaneously, parallel to each other. Large, heavy trucks or other construction equipment is probably loaded in one single row through the middle of the cabin. You see here the rear ramp that is now opening up. Again, as Mr. Balabayev said, a rather difficult thing to develop all of the components to get the geometry of opening up these large sections and unloading it.
Что на самолете применено очень много композиционных материалов.
This aircraft employs a high percentage of advanced composites.
Уголь, кевлар ваши.
It's sort of like our carbon fibers, boron fibers, material equivalent to the American Kevlars. These are not metal. These long 13-meter flaps are all advanced composite, carbon fiber composites.
With so many apparent similarities to American transport design, Mr. Gregory asked whether Soviet designers had examined the C-5 while developing the Antonov.
I personally I regret to say that I personally have never seen a C-5, but obviously there was a lot of general information available in the open press about it. 80% of the heavy grading equipment, trucks, bulldozers, things of that sort, can be carried by this aircraft.
Well, that was obviously
there are, however, some components of giant oil drill rigs, things of that sort, that still cannot be carried by the machine.
Routine maintenance work can be performed by simply walking out on the wings and tail. An extensive system of hatches high up on the plane also emphasizes the Soviet priorities. The Antonov is designed to operate in remote locations where there are no work stands.
The landing gear, as you see here, is self-explanatory. What is not readily apparent is that the last two bogies on each side are steerable to allow the aircraft to taxi and to turn, to reduce the turning radius. These last two bogies can be steered from the cockpit.
The Antonov has a 50-meter turning radius, tighter than any other large cargo air transport, permitting it to use smaller airstrips.
I noticed that they have two nose wheel struts and a double bogie. Did they have any special shimmy problems with that or any alignment problems?
Mr. Gregory замечает, что у вас есть двойной шасси впереди. И он спрашивает, как инженер, если у вас были иногда какие-то там проблемы, вибрации, то, что мы называем по-английски shimmy.
Shimmy.
Да.
Были.
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 We had shimmy problems, but we resolved them.
Были. Незначительные, как мы считаем, незначительные. Были проблемы.
Yes, we had problems of
Why
shimmy.
did they go to the dual
Такой самолет без проблем не делается.
You don't build an aircraft of this size and push the technology without encountering problems. We did trade-off studies. We also had, obviously, the design constraint. We don't have as much room to play with in the nose as we do, for instance, here in the main gear. Consequently, we did the trade-off studies and decided that you could lower structural weight and a more compact design could be done by having a dual nose wheel installation rather than one single large installation. The Antonov shows one or two, possibly three significant technical breakthroughs. The first most significant thing on that aircraft is the fact that the Soviet aerospace industry has developed a very large high bypass ratio turbofan. Without that development, the aircraft would have been impossible. Second, to me technically rather important, is the fact that this aircraft probably was designed, and the design was frozen probably 3 to 5 years ago. They were already well enough advanced 5 years ago to take the technological risk of a fly-by-wire system. The third is, I think, a large investment in advanced composite technology. They are building and they are cooking very, very large sections of that aircraft.
Above the portside door is painted the name Ruslan, a fictional character from Alexander Pushkin. In English, the word means very big man.